It's midnight and you're watching Nightline. I'm Raymond Goh. Your top stories. Schools to reopen in phases starting June 24th. And Sarawak now allows airlines to resume domestic flights at full capacity. Thanks for joining us. Parents and guardians should keep students who are sick out of school when classes resume from June 24th. Senior Minister of Education, Dr. Muhammad Radzi advised them to be mindful of the COVID-19 pandemic and get medical treatment for their children instead. Dr. Muhammad Radzi earlier announced that classes would resume in batches, with priority given to students sitting for national examinations this year, such as for SPM and its equivalent. He added for students who are not sitting for any of the exams, their home-based learning will continue as presently, until an announcement is made by the Education Ministry. He also assured parents who are concerned about the safety of their children that the school reopening management guidelines had been distributed to schools on June 4th as a guide so that detailed preparations are carried out before reopening.
Garis panduan ini telah mendapat pengesahan daripada KKM. Di samping itu, keboleh laksanaan garis panduan pembukaan semula sekolah telah dicuba di 12 buah sekolah di bawah KPM dan 8 buah institusi pendidikan swasta pada awal Mei 2020. Berdasarkan penilaian yang dibuat, pihak KPM, KKM dan MKN berpuas hati dengan keboleh laksanaan garis panduan tersebut.
He added that the guidelines would be improved from time to time based on the advice of the Health Ministry. Spot checks by his ministry together with the state education departments and district education officers will also be carried out on schools to ensure their level of preparedness and compliance with the standard operating procedures, SOPs, ahead of their reopening. If there are weaknesses in the SOPs of the schools, his ministry will assist to improve them over the next 2 weeks. The reopening of the schools will involve 500,444 students in some 2,440 schools throughout the country. The senior minister also stressed for all parties, including parents, students and teachers, to strictly follow the SOPs to ensure the safety of everyone, especially the students in schools. Among the SOPs announced is on the school session, which will be done in stages to avoid congestion. However, the time will be announced by the ministry soon.
Apabila murid sampai di sekolah, guru-guru bertugas akan memeriksa suhu badan mereka di pintu masuk sekolah. Pemeriksaan suhu badan juga akan dibuat kepada guru, warga sekolah dan individu yang mempunyai urusan dengan pihak sekolah. Sesiapa yang mencatatkan suhu badan melebihi 37.5 degree Celsius atau bergejala tidak akan dibenarkan memasuki kawasan sekolah. Setelah pemeriksaan suhu badan dibuat, murid perlu mengikut laluan pergerakan yang telah ditetapkan untuk menuju ke kelas masing-masing. Sewaktu di sekolah, murid akan diingatkan untuk sentiasa menjaga kebersihan diri, terutamanya amalan mencuci tangan dengan kerap. Contohnya, apabila murid tiba di sekolah, pada waktu rehat dan juga sebelum meninggalkan sekolah. Di dalam kelas nanti, meja-meja akan disusun pada jarak 1 meter. Secara umumnya, kapasiti maksimum untuk sebuah kelas dengan mengambil kira penjarakan sosial adalah tidak melebihi 20 orang murid.
He also encouraged parents or guardians to prepare food for their children to bring to school, adding that students will be eating in the classrooms under the supervision of teachers. Outdoor activities such as sports and co-curriculum, which involve face-to-face meetings as well as school assembly, would not be conducted for now. He also revealed that the Transport Ministry is finalizing the SOPs involving school buses, which will be announced soon. The Sarawak State Disaster Management Committee, SDMC, has approved the decision for full capacity flights between Peninsular Malaysia and Sarawak and vice versa effective Wednesday. According to a Bernama report, Sarawak Transport Minister Dato' Lee Kim Shin said the decision was made after taking into consideration various factors, namely the improvement of the COVID-19 situation in the state, the need to stimulate domestic economic growth, especially in the tourism sector, and to facilitate movement of goods and people for business, official and personal reasons. Prior to this, the flying capacity allowed by SDMC was limited to 66.6% capacity. Dato' Lee said although the approval has been given for interstate travel and on 100% flight capacity, all agencies such as the airport operators and airline operators must follow strictly the standard operating procedures SOP on the passengers at the terminal and while inside the aircraft. Dato' Lee said prior to this decision, information that had been obtained by his ministry revealed that airlines have been charging exorbitant fares for their flights between Peninsular Malaysia and Sarawak. The higher fares are due to the lower passenger load due to the SOP to curtail COVID-19. He hoped that with the decision, airlines could cope with the current situation and be able to reduce their flight fares to a reasonable level and acceptable to the public. The Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, MOTAC, will come up with a recovery plan to revive the tourism and culture industry at a faster pace. Its Minister Dato' Sri Nancy Shukri said despite Visit Malaysia Year 2020 being cancelled, efforts to promote Malaysia as a safe destination will continue. Among the strategies to revive the tourism sector includes a revamp of the promotions and marketing strategies to regain the public's confidence to travel again, as well as raising the quality of cleanliness and safety in line with the guidelines set by the National Security Council. As for the culture industry, plans to revive the sector will involve a development and expansion program, as well as a marketing and promotion program.
Sama ada yang ada di sini hari ini atau di luar sana harus memainkan peranan berganding bahu bersama-sama menyemarakkan semula industri pelancongan negara sekaligus meletakkan Malaysia sebagai sebuah destinasi pelancongan selamat. I would like to repeat that. Malaysia is a safe destination for tourism untuk dikunjungi pada masa hadapan.
Dato' Sri Nancy said according to a Tourism Malaysia survey on domestic travel after the MCO, 50.9% of respondents felt that travelling within the country would be safer after the movement restrictions, while 71.3% would prefer travelling locally compared to overseas. Thailand praised the Malaysian government's approach in handling the COVID-19 outbreak. The message was conveyed by Thai Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha to Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin via a telephone call on Wednesday. Thai government spokeswoman Narumon Pinyo Sinwat said General Prayut called Tan Sri Muhyiddin for the first time after Tan Sri Muhyiddin took office as Malaysia's 8th Prime Minister at 3:30 p.m. In the conversation, she said General Prayut congratulated his counterpart and praised him over the good management in handling COVID-19 in Malaysia, which recorded a total of 8,338 cumulative infection cases with 118 deaths. Narumon said General Prayut also thanked the Malaysian government for facilitating Thais working in Malaysia and assured that the Thai government would assist in sending Malaysians in the kingdom back via various channels. Only 2 new COVID-19 cases and 1 death were reported on the first day of the recovery MCO phase on Wednesday. According to Health Director General Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah, this is the lowest number of new cases detected since the start of the MCO. However, there are still 1,206 active cases currently in the country. Of the 2 new cases, 1 is an imported case, while the other is a foreigner in Kuching, Sarawak. As for the patient who died, he was a 61-year-old Malaysian man with a history of chronic illness and kidney disease. He also had a history of attending the Sri Petaling gathering and was admitted to the Sungai Buloh Hospital on March 15th and died at 7:03 a.m. Wednesday. All Malaysians planning to travel have been advised to abide by traffic rules to prevent accidents and loss of life, as the volume of traffic is expected to surge in the weekend. Senior Minister for Security, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, said traffic along major highways is expected to increase from Friday to Sunday as people take the opportunity to hit the Balik Kampung Trail now that travel restrictions have been lifted. Dato Sri Ismail Sabri said Malaysians are still subjected to certain restrictions under the Recovery MCO that came into force on Wednesday.
Apabila singgah di RNR, penggunaan tandas, makan minum di RNR, patuhilah setiap SOP yang dikeluarkan oleh kerajaan, kerana kesalahan melanggar SOP juga akan dikenakan tindakan oleh pihak polis, kerana PDRM akan mengawal di kawasan-kawasan seperti itu. Tidak mengawal di jalan raya, tetapi mengawal di kawasan-kawasan tempat awam dan sebagainya.
Dato Sri Ismail Sabri said roadblocks will also be removed, but not at red lanes used by illegal immigrants. Sabah Infrastructure Development Minister Dato Peter Anthony is expected to be charged in Kota Kinabalu court on Thursday for money laundering. Dato Peter, who is also Parti Warisan Sabah Vice President, said he had received a warrant in connection with money laundering, allegedly involving the Rubber Industry Smallholders Development Authority, RISDA, between 2012 and 2013. He is expected to be charged under the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act 2001. Dato Peter earlier arrived at the MACC office at 2:45 p.m. on Wednesday and was released at 5:45 p.m. after being issued the warrant. On Tuesday, he was at the MACC office for nearly 7 hours. Four company directors aged between 30 and 41 were remanded for 5 days until Sunday for alleged misappropriation of subsidized cooking oil supply quota. The remand order was issued at the Putrajaya Magistrates Court to facilitate investigations by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, into their suspected involvement in the syndicate. The Graft Busters Deputy Chief Commissioner of Operations, Dato Sri Ahmad Kusairi Yahya, confirmed the arrest of the four individuals in Selangor and Putrajaya. It was believed that the syndicate was given a quota of 1,000 tons of cooking oil per month and had been profiting on the subsidy payments amounting to 21.6 million ringgit since 3 years ago. Authorities believed that there are 9 companies that are controlled by the syndicate. The MACC had also frozen 12 accounts belonging to individuals and companies, totaling over 25 million ringgit in relation to the case. It was understood that the companies claimed subsidy payments from the government to process the cooking oil into 1 kilogram packets and supply them to local retailers, especially in the rural community. Instead, the cooking oil were exported out of the country, resulting in a supply shortage in the local market. Local private institution of higher learning Lim Kok Wing University came under fire for what was described as it being racist. What really angered numerous people was the university's act of putting up an alleged racist poster a few months ago. It sparked outrage now in light of the ongoing Black Lives Matter protests across the United States and other parts of the globe. The poster in question shows the university's founder, Tan Sri Lim Kok Wing, claiming to be quite king of Africa, surrounded by students in Sierra Leone. Students were the first to voice out, pointing out several issues with the poster via an online petition launched on June 7th. Among them, that it has the notion that black people need saving. placing them in an inferior role, and that its foreign students were being dehumanized while profiting off them. Social media users have also pointed out that the poster had been edited to make the crowd appear larger. Some demanded that Lim Kok Weng University needs to do more to protect its African students from discrimination and injustice. The petition garnered more than 4,703 signatures as of 10:30 p.m. Wednesday, including University Malaya Faculty of Medicine Dean Professor Dato Dr. Adiba Kamarul Zaman. Following the backlash, Lim Kok Weng University responded on Wednesday night, describing the poster as a misstep and said it was wrong to have put up the billboard. In its tweet, the university apologized to its students, employees, and the community. Still to come on Nightline, 6 killed in Lahadatu 3-vehicle collision. Stay with us. Welcome back. There is no change in the government's policy in setting retail fuel and diesel prices, only in how it is enforced. Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Minister Dato Alexander Nanta Linggi said his ministry views seriously media reports saying that the government has revoked the Federal Gazette for the ceiling price of RON 95 and diesel. In a statement on Wednesday, the minister explained that the Gazette was used to ensure that petrol stations and fuel companies do not raise their prices above what was set by the Finance Ministry weekly since March 30th, 2017. However, on February 29, 2020, the Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry changed the enforcement mechanism by enforcing it through the Control of Supply Act. The change was made to increase the effectiveness in enforcing and monitoring the prices. Dato Alexander Nanta said his ministry is committed to guaranteeing the rights of consumers by ensuring fuel companies and petrol stations stick to the prices set. Six people, including 2 women, were killed in a crash involving 3 vehicles at Jalan Tunku near Kampung Membatu in Lahadatu, Sabah early on Wednesday. The 8:30 a.m. collision caused a trailer lorry to plunge into a 60-foot ravine, while 2 other vehicles were badly damaged. According to the State Fire and Rescue Department, when rescuers arrived, all the victims were pinned inside their mangled vehicles. The victims were declared dead at the scene. Authorities said the deceased were the lorry driver, 2 occupants of an Isuzu D-Max, and 3 inside a Proton Saga car. All the bodies were taken to Lahadatu Hospital for post-mortem. In Johor, 2 people were killed while 1 suffered serious injuries in an accident involving a car and a lorry along the Jalan Air Hitam Johor Bahru Road. Kulai Fire and Rescue Department Operations Commander Muhammad Khairi Zainuddin said that in the 11:45 a.m. incident or accident, the driver and rear passengers were declared dead by medics at the scene. The deceased were identified as Muhammad Nur Fahmi Suparto, 27, and his mother, Amidah Kamis, 53. The front passenger, who suffered serious injuries, was taken to Kulai Hospital. Singapore approves Remdesivir drug for emergency COVID-19 treatment. The details when we come back. On to the foreign front. Singapore on Wednesday conditionally approved the use of Gilead Sciences Inc.'s antiviral drug Remdesivir for the treatment of severely ill patients with COVID-19 infection. The approval is based on clinical data from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in the United States Global Phase 3 trial and another by Gilead. According to Singapore's Health Sciences Authority, HSA, the conditional approval would allow treatment of adult patients if they have low blood oxygen levels or require supplemental oxygen, or as well as intensive breathing support. As part of the conditional approval, Gilead is required to collect the relevant safety data and to monitor the use of the drug. To date, the nation recorded 451 new coronavirus cases, taking the total to 38,965. The new cases include 7 community cases comprising 3 Singaporeans or permanent residents and 4 work pass holders. Philippine stocks sank more than 3% on Wednesday as investors worried a proposed $26 billion stimulus package was running into political trouble. This came as the number of COVID-19 cases in the nation rose to 23,732 after 740 more infections were reported on Wednesday. It is understood that the nation's main index fell to its lowest in nearly a decade in March as it joined dozens of countries in imposing a strict lockdown. However, it has gained back about 60% since as the measures were eased and markets globally recovered. The latest signs on the domestic economy showed imports and exports both sinking by more than 50% in April, an indication of the scale of the collapse in output under the lockdowns. Financial stocks such as Security Bank Corp and BDO Unibank Inc. were among the top losers on the index. Meanwhile, Indonesia's benchmark index fell 2.3%, with financials accounting for around a third of the losses, as the daily coronavirus case count breached the 1,000 mark for the first time. However, according to analysts, Indonesian stocks have gained around 13% in the past 2 weeks, which could produce a positive outcome in the coming days. On Wednesday, the country reported its biggest daily increase in COVID-19 cases for a second successive day, with 1,241 new infections, taking its total to 34,316. Wednesday's figure surpassed the record 1,043 new coronavirus infections reported on Tuesday. Bayer Leverkusen cruise into the German Cup final. Details up next. Newspapers, the New Straits Times, Harian Metro and Berita Harian highlight on the reopening of schools after 3 months of strict movement control order, while the Malaysian Reserve features a special report on the fate of several major infrastructure projects, as there is still no clear indications of their progress. Do get your copies today or subscribe to the e-paper. And that's it for Nightline. Meanwhile, in France, after waiting patiently for the past 3 months, kite surfing enthusiasts wasted no time heading back to the beaches and leaping back onto their boards at Li Kusula in Lofronki to enjoy their beloved sports. I'm Raymond Goh. Thank you for tuning in and take care.